go to the next slide. Without going, before going into the content on the scenarios and then the focus on data centers, I just want to take a minute to recap for those of you who don't really know Enerdata very well yet. We are an independent research and consulting firm. We've been around for more than 30 years, even 35 years now. We are experts in the analysis and modeling of energy and climate related issues. We work with databases, models, and studies to provide you the best insights available on the energy markets globally. We are based in the French Alps in Grenoble, in France. We were a spin-off from a research center based there. And we also have an office in Paris and a subsidiary in Singapore. We work with clients from all over the globe, all continents, and have a long-standing experience working around the globe. And we basically connect with all kinds of stakeholders of the energy transition, public clients, companies, firms, financial actors, as well as NGOs and research bodies. Now, our expertise span from the knowledge of markets, energy markets. We have watch activities, market research, and business intelligence competencies. We are experts in the market drivers, even clean technologies, and experts in these areas. We have recognized experience in modeling. We have some models for the energy systems at the global, national scales. And also carbon markets. And we provide also some data science competencies to our clients with the provision of databases and information services. If you're more interested in that, we'll be happy to engage bilaterally afterwards. But without further ado, I think let's look at the agenda for today. So we will deal with the release of our latest version of the EnerFuture scenario, which we update yearly. And Perrine, next to me, will guide you through some main conclusions of this year's edition with a specific focus on the fossil fuel reliance with this changing world that leads to changing a bit the questions that we ask ourselves. Then we will leave the floor to Florent and Olivier here as well to do a focus on the outlook for data center energy consumption, which is surging right now, and we'll see to where it can lead us. So I'm very thrilled to be with you guys. Thanks for being there. And then we will end with conclusions and a QA session. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A chat box in Zoom directly, and we'll try to cover as much as possible during the QA session. And then finally, just two notes from my side. First, we will share the slides of the webinar by tomorrow through an email to every participant. And there will also be a recording available on our YouTube channel. So don't hesitate to have a look if you want to share this webinar to some colleagues later on. I think I've talked already too much. Let's dive into the EnerFuture scenarios. Perrine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aurélien. I think you can switch. Yeah. So as some of you probably already know, Enerdata produces annually a set of 3 contrasted scenarios, which are basically meant to give 3 complementary views on what the global energy system might become in the future. So those scenarios are the following. We have EnerBase, which is really our baseline scenario in which we assume the continuation of existing trends and policies. Then we have EnerBlue, which is a scenario in which we assume the achievement of, let's say, the main target and objective set up by the countries, and especially the NDCs submitted up to the end of 2025. And our last scenario, which is the most ambitious, is EnerGreen, a scenario in which the countries respect a carbon budget that is in line with the Paris Agreement. Now, all those three scenarios are built and are produced using our in-house POLES-Enerdata model, which is a energy economy environment model that covers the overall entire value chain. Now, this slide here presents the main scenario, the main results of our three scenario in order to give you, let's say, a broad vision of what they contain. So in our base, our baseline, which is the gray line in the graphs, the primary energy consumption keeps rising quite in line with its historical trend. And this, coupled with a slightly decreasing share of fossil in the energy mix, leads to emissions that keep increasing for a while until peaking around 2045 and slightly decreasing afterwards. On the other hand, we have Ener Blue, in which the primary energy consumption really remains stable in the future, but the energy mix is really decarbonizing towards 2050, and that leads to decreasing emission of around 3% per year. And then in Energreen, all those cursor are kind of pushed even further with slightly decreasing primary energy consumption that leads to even further emission reduction. Now, those, let's say, this description are kind of theoretical and really answer to the idea of a synchronized, orderly transition with every country walking into the same direction. But we are today kind of faced with a sort of change in paradigm with climate ambitions that are getting more and more polarized and more linked with a geopolitical game that is becoming more and more tense. And you can, yeah. And in a globalized system as we are today, the action of a key player in the energy value chain really impacts the overall change. So yeah, there's a question of globalized system that really is important, and the beginning of 2026 really stand out and was quite a great example of that, with the beginning of the year being a period mark with a lot of international tensions around the energy resources management. Notably, of course, with the war in Iran and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, that leads to nearly immediate price spikes. So this general context really leads to a question of whether the countries will have the ability in the future to decouple from that global fossil fuel markets. And this question really is a new way for us to see our scenario and to present them, which is that thinking about them really in this angle of energy independence. So here is our new, let's say, yearly way of presenting the scenario, saying that Energreen is, of course, a scenario of energy transition, but that really is characterized by a stronger energy independence of the countries, particularly with an important rise of renewables. And with fossil fuels only making up for 25% of the global energy consumption in 2050. And on the other hand, we have Enerbase, which is a scenario in which the potential sensitivity to international tension is really high, with a fossil fuel share that remains really high up to 2050, and with increasing fossil fuel prices. Now, those global overviews and description can of course be declined into regional pictures depending on the region considered. We have on the one hand Europe, who has historically been really very reliant on fossil fuel imports, and that becomes nearly completely independent in EnerBlue and EnerGreen, thanks to the rise of renewables. And on the other hand, we have some regions like China and the US, which are historically pretty independent thanks to their respective fossil fuel production, namely coal and gas. And yeah, so they are more historically more independent, but you can see here that in all scenarios, EnerGreen leads to more independence than EnerBase concerning energy. Now, we just established that reducing fossil fuel reliance was the key to ensure a smoother transition. Now, the question remains, how is that implemented within the scenario, right? So we managed to give you 3 pillars of how to reduce this fossil fuel reliance. The first one being reducing the energy demand growth. So for let's say for a given energy mix, if you reduce the global energy demand, then therefore you obviously reduce the fossil fuel demand. This is particularly embedded in EnerBlue and EnerGreen, using both efficiency in EnerBlue particularly, and in sufficiency in EnerGreen. The second pillar is decarbonizing the power sector, meaning that here again, with a given energy mix, if you decarbonize your power sector, then you decarbonize your electricity production, and therefore your entire your fossil fuel reliance. So this is again particularly the case in EnerBlue and EnerGreen, with renewables playing a key role, and especially wind and solar. And this brings the carbon emission factor to reduce a lot and nearly dropping down to none. And then the third pillar is, of course, to use fuel substitution and especially to increase the share of electricity in the final demand. And this is embedded in all 3 scenarios. In basically all regions and all sector, the electrification rate really is increasing in all the 3 scenarios. Now, not only is the share increasing, the share of electricity increasing, but the absolute electricity demand is increasing as well. That's what you can see on the graph here that represent only EnerBlue. And both, I mean, this increase of electricity demand is due to 2 things. The increase of the use of electricity in, let's say, current uses, such as space cooling, electric arc furnace, and etc. Those are existing electricity needs. And we here, let's say, put on the side some new electrical uses that are bound to develop a lot in the upcoming years. Namely EVs, heat pump, dry air capture, and data center, who are making up to 27% of the global electricity demand in EnerBlue in 2050, as compared to 7% today. And we at Enerdata have historically been modeling 3 of those, direct air capture, heat pumps, and EVs. And we this year embedded in our scenario a modeling of data centers, and which are going to be the focus of today.
Thank you, Perrine, for this very informative presentation and for making the transition smooth. I just want to point out that indeed it's very important now not to look at sustainability, but we also have to look at security at the same time for energy when it comes to scenarios. And that is something we work on a day-to-day basis at Enerdata. We will also produce a joint publication with a consortium of researchers soon focused on these aspects of energy security, looking at all the angles. So stay tuned on our media page to learn more about that.
Thank you. So now we propose you to deep dive on the data center energy consumptions. Data centers are not longer background noise. So the question is no longer if, but where, when, and what will be the intensity of data center consumptions. So it has become a real new strategic driver. And for the first time in EnerFuture, we integrate a dedicated data center electricity consumption series, consistent with the rest of the energy system. You will see we will present the service where there are country level data. They are integrated to the scenario, not in a standalone add-on. And you will see the historical data and the forward-looking trajectories. And with Olivier, we will present you all these series that you can use today to compare, to decide, to benchmark.
So if you want to deep dive on data center energy consumption, first we will just a small look on the data center energy models that we are using currently in EnerFuture. And first for energy modeling, you have to have data and you have to have historical data consolidation. So for data center, data collection is quite a big topic because we have like a very wide range of quality of data sources. And so for this work, we process to have a scoring system regarding data center raw data from external sources. So we score data sources from 1 to 3, depending on the quality of the external sources. So the maximum scoring of 1 is when we can rely on national data sources from TSO, DSO, Department of Energy, or national statistical offices. The scoring of 2 is for data sources from academic papers, research bodies, or fellow consulting agencies. And the third level is from data center association. So from all those raw data, we made our internal scoring, and then we made consistency check, coherence check, in order to have like a whole data set from 2015 up to 2024 for historical data, and to make coherence check regarding load factor, PU, power usage effectiveness, percentage of energy consumption in the service sector. And we ended up with like 1/3 of strong quality data, 1/3 of quite good data, and the last third was from acceptable data from data center association. And if we deep dive in the modeling side, we use for our modeling of data center an activity variable called workload. So on the one hand, we have like global demand of workload for all the countries. And on the other hand, we have workload production for all the countries. And each year we have a competition based on the new workload needed to match with the demand. And this competition is based on CapEx of data center for implementing new data center, OpEx related to electricity prices, based on our database on electricity prices for all countries. And the last one is what we call maturity coefficient, which is a way to represent a non-monetary factor, namely regulation or incentives to favor the development of data center on a given country. And based on this competition, we ended up with like workload production for each country, and then we convert it into IT energy consumption, either for conventional DC or AI data center. And then we multiply this workload with energy efficiency factor to end up with IT energy consumption. And then we add up ratio to compute energy consumption related to storage and to network. And lastly, with power usage effectiveness, we ended up with the energy consumption of non-IT for both conventional DC and AI DC. Regarding the geographical coverage of data center, we cover 31 countries, so a bit less than in all the EnerFuture services, but it's mainly due to the data quality and the historical sources. We can only cover currently 31 countries, and we cover all the 7 regions for this modeling.
I can add that we have modeled the data center where it matters most in the scenario. So we have, of course, the US, Ireland, the Nordics, but also all the emerging countries where is the money invested right now. So it has been prioritized, and of course we will add new countries in the upcoming years. One thing interesting is that all the aggregates and the countries are balancing with the global results. Of course, this is the fundamentals of the POLES model. Let's see the results, or at least the world data center electricity consumptions. Here on the right side, you can see the 3 levers affecting the demand. So as it has been mentioned before, the workload is one of them, and the workload in the EnerBase scenario is pushed much further than in the EnerBlue and the EnerGreen scenario. In any scenario, it increased a lot strongly. So we are facing a new use, and even if in EnerGreen it's increasing a lot. The second lever is the share of optimized AI. It's a kind of structural innovation in the AI, and it has been pushed more in the EnerBlue and EnerGreen scenarios. And the same for the efficiencies, like the PUE and the IT efficiencies. It has been pushed more in the EnerGreen, but in the EnerBase also, the innovation is really important. There is a fourth pillar, which is the energy mix, as Perrine mentioned at the beginning, and that's the why it's so robust is that in any scenario you have the power mix for every country, so that will give us, and we will see that later, the CO2 emissions. Regarding the electricity consumptions, you can see we can see on the last decade that the consumption has increased exponentially. And we assume that in the next 10 years, it will increase a lot in every scenario, all the 3 scenarios, and it will double in the EnerGreen and triple in the EnerBase scenario by 2035. And after 2035, there are a lot of uncertainties. But we tried to model it because it's really interesting, and we can see in EnerBase and EnerBlue scenarios linear consumptions during this period, whereas the EnerGreen scenario plateaus around 1.5 petawatt hour in 2050. What happened behind these figures? It's a real battle of drivers. Here we show you on the left side on the left side the AI workload demand in the bar chart and the efficiencies in the curves and the area curves. On the right side, the same, but for the conventional workload demand. So we see an incredible increase in the workload demand with in the dark colored bars, it's the share of optimized AI. So it increased a lot during this period. I think something much more than linear, and it's balanced by the real progress on efficiencies. So on the non-optimized AI efficiencies, it's decreasing as it has been seen in the last years, and for optimized AI, it started to decrease since 2030.
And if we take a step back just to look at the weight of data center demand in other regarding other multi-sectoral electrification trajectories, currently data center like it's a big topic, but if we look at other sectors like the electrification of industry or electrification of road transport, in our scenario, data center are projected to account for just 11% of the growth of global electricity demand by 2035. So it's almost the same importance as heat pumps, a little bit more. And for the next period between 2035 up to 2050, data center will only drive 7% of the global power demand increase. So if we have to remember like an order of magnitude, it's a bit more than heat pumps and twice less as electric vehicles. If you look at the results by region for data center electricity consumption, the market is really dominated by two main regions, so namely North America and Asia Pacific, who accounts for approximately 75% of data center electricity demand in 2025. Europe is lagging a little bit behind, but if we look at the energy consumption related to per capita, so Europe it's in front of Asia Pacific with an energy consumption of like roughly 150 kilowatt hour per inhabitant in 2025. And in our enable scenario, so it's not the most with a strong development of workload, but not as much as Enerbase. The energy consumption in North America and Asia Pacific are set to be multiplied by 4 to 5 by 2050. So this is be a strong increase for those two regions. And then we can look closely to data center electricity consumption, but per country. So on the left part of the bar chart, you can see the electricity consumption per capita, and on the right, with the bars, you have the absolute value of electricity consumption for data center. And we can see that currently there is like an outlier, which is Ireland currently with a massive energy consumption per capita of roughly 1,500 kilowatt hour per capita. And just and then you have like a series of countries like namely United States, Canada, and many European countries in Nordic states or Netherlands who have a high value of energy consumption per capita. And so in our enable scenarios, like there won't be a very big change regarding the main player currently. So in 2050, USA and China will remain the world leader regarding energy consumption by data center, reaching over 700 terawatt hour for each. And for all the countries, we expect a strong increase by 3.5 for all the countries, from 120 kilowatt hour per capita in 2025 up to 400 kilowatt hour per capita to 2050 for the mean electricity demand per capita regarding electricity consumption. And then if we deep dive to a specific country in our EnerFuture services, we have some detailed series regarding electricity consumption, especially for European countries, called Deep Demand Dive. And we have like 8 countries, and one of which is France. And if we look at the energy consumption of data center in France, we can rely on strong data sources with National Statistical Office, which reported each year up to 2024 the data center energy consumption, which is around 5 terawatt hour in 2024. And for France, we are expecting a strong increase in all the 3 scenarios for all scenarios, because like France is trying to attract like new data center in his territory due to like relatively low electricity prices, and with a surplus of electricity production. And he is trying to electrify his economy, and the other sector are quite lagging behind. Like we are expecting more electrification in road transport and in industry, but the current development is not as fast as expected. So France is trying to attract like data center to compensate like the less than expected trajectories of electrification. And so just to sum up it, in energy scenario, like the data center electricity consumption, we ended up to 7% of the global, the national electricity consumption in the country. And in our green scenario, we try to make it possible to stabilize the energy demand after 2040 through like important energy efficiency and sufficiency measure, with like not a reduction of digital services, but like a relatively low growth of digital services up to after 2040. And then we have like a disaggregated energy consumption. So specifically for those 8 countries in deep demand dive services, we are able to disaggregate the energy consumption through different types of data center types. So we have like the enterprise data center, who are used by companies in their own sites. We have cloud, or we can name it colocation, who represent currently the main data center types in France in 2025, mainly by the development of cloud computing. And then we have like we call HPC, so hyperscaler, who are very large data center, mainly more than 10,000 square meters, and more than 40 megawatt of installed capacity. So in France, the development of data center is mainly driven by colocation and HPC, and also the AI dedicated data center will represent more than 45% of the energy used in the EnerBlue scenario. And then lastly, we are able to disaggregate the energy demand by server, storage, network, and infrastructure. So you can have a look of it in our TDD services. And then we are able to compute like CO2 emission, and to look at a more broad picture of the data center impact on CO2 emission.
On CO2 emission, let's go back to the global level, so the world level. Here you can find the data center CO2 emission for the three scenarios on the bar chart. So here are the emissions per year. We can see three peaks. The NR base peak in 2045, NR blue in 2035, and NR green in 2030, reflecting all the assumptions and different levels that we have seen before. From the electricity demand to the emissions, we go through emission factors per kilowatt hour, and the strength of the POLES model, and that we have these factors for each country. So it's the aggregated result here. The area here is showing the difference between the NR base and the NR green scenario in terms of cumulated emissions. So this area is equal to 3 gigaton of CO2 as the cumulated CO2 emissions emitted in the atmosphere. It's interesting. It has to be compared with order of magnitudes. Here, it's like adding two countries in the world. So it's like adding the emissions of Canada and Belgium in 2025. But it's in terms of emission, it's like delaying half a year of the mitigating effort. So this is just to show you some order of magnitudes regarding the emissions. Through this modeling approach, we imagine many ideas for, and we have many projects to use and to capitalize on that analysis tool. So from price competition, policies competition, and technologies inputs, and we can say also local acceptance and the carbon intensity. We can, for example, imagine to calculate the dependency index from a country to another and how it will evolve in the future. As the workload is a global demand, it's a global use, and then countries are competing to attract data centers. So the result is that some countries will provide data center capacity, so workload, and others will need this capacity, and it will be not in their country. So here we can see an example of what will be a dependent or an independent country regarding the digital use. So it's like to loop into the first topic of the webinar regarding the energy independency. Another idea is to see the electricity emissions from the digital data that is produced by another country, as we can multiply by the carbon intensity where the data centers are located. So it's really interesting. To summarize that, here you can see the disaggregation of our database and where it will be where it is in our products at Enerdata. So the data center consumptions is divided by use. So you will see the AI and the non-AI uses. In the AI branch, you will see the optimized AI, as I said, and the non-optimized AI. And for the non-AI use, you can consult the results by DC type, enterprise, cloud, and hyperscaler, as Olivier just said before. And the IT, so all this consumption is also disaggregated by IT and non-IT. As IT, it's the server, the storage, and the network, and they have their own efficiencies and the demand. And for the non-IT, we refer to the auxiliaries and the cooling system. So this consumption will be presented in the results that you will see. And then in EnerFuture, you can see also the installed capacities through the used load factors. So I invite you to deep dive in our databases, EnerFuture, and demand deep dive.
Thank you, Florent and Olivier. I think it was a fascinating presentation. on a new topic. So maybe just before switching to the QA, once again, please use the QA chatbot. Chat box at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions, and we'll try to go through them. Maybe just a couple of takeaways, broad takeaways from my side. The first one related to the first part of the presentation is that with the changing state of the world, energy security goes hand in hand with energy, sustainability or energy transition. And I think for some regions, such as Europe, for instance, which is a rather fossil fuel importer type of region, I think we should see that as an opportunity rather than a divergence between those two concepts. There is an opportunity in doing the transition and increasing at the same time the independence. And then regarding the second part on data centers, my two main takeaways are the following. The first one is that we produced a robust and we want to be transparent about this methodology, robust methodology, but we want to be transparent about it. That's why we also showed the breakdown and how we approach things here. I think it's something important when we tackle with we deal with a new topic, to be open and transparent about the way we approach it, not to come up with a black box. And secondly, I would say that we see that the energy consumption from data centers will increase in all scenarios and will actually increase very fast. We should also keep in mind that this amounts to a smaller percentage than some other technologies such as EVs. We can see that it's in line with, slightly above the contribution of heat pumps, for instance. So whenever we talk about all of these data center, we hear these words all around the place. It's so important to have these orders of magnitude in mind. But maybe let's stop here and take a few questions. So maybe let's start with a very quick question for you, Florent. Someone asked if we have, a sort of documentation that we can publicly share on data centers. I repeat that the slides of this webinar will be publicly available in the replay as well. Anything else that you want to point towards?
No, in the EnerFuture platform, you will see a slide deck where all the methodology is transparent. So you will see the equations will be available. They are available, and the data sources. So no, everything transparent in the service. So
thank you so much. I see another question here about data centers. The question is, do we basically differentiate the consumption patterns of classical data centers for which the power consumption is increasing linearly over 5 to 10 years, whereas for a hyperscaler, those correspond to more of one-shot requests, and for consumption, is this something that is inherently covered by the assumptions that we made, Olivier?
We don't model like a load factor hour by hour of data center. We model like the data consumption annually, and we currently don't have a data center tracker of all data center around the world. So our modeling is based on the annual energy consumption and the annual installed capacity of data center.
yes, I just can add that that's how it works in the POLES model with a dynamic simulation year per year. At Enerdata, there is the electricity department, and the European network is modeled with a very fine approach. So that's something that we have in mind to model it with the hour time step and see what can be the consequences on the electricity prices also.
Thank you, Olivier and Florent. I have a question for you, Perrine. On one slide, we showed that the heat pumps would account for a certain share of the electricity consumption. And then we had another category, which was industrial electrification. And the question is, how did we basically allocate the electrification in those two categories, heat pumps on the one side and industrial electrification on the other side, knowing that, of course, high temperature heat pumps can play a role in industrial electrification?
I would say that, and Olivier, correct me if I'm wrong, that heat pumps represented in the graph mentioned was rather in the residential and commercial sectors, meaning for space heating. Industry electrification rather refers to electrification of processes using electrical arc furnaces, for example, and such sort of processes.
Thank you, Perrine. I have two questions regarding data centers. The first one I will point towards you, Florent. There's basically this critical question that is, if the energy consumption from data centers is not that high as compared to other users, why do we talk about it so much? And I think it has to do with the expectations of electrification that are currently not living up to the expectations.
Yes, exactly. When we see the consumptions and the emissions, everybody is saying, yeah, it's only 2-3%, 5%. So yeah, it's always interesting to deep dive in this because all sectors and all users are very important. I will just say that it's important because in terms of electrification, so electrification, we have here today connected, we have energy companies. So they have trajectories in the future, and trajectories depends on the electricity demand. And this electricity demand has been based on a very strong structural change that are EVs and heat pumps. So the idea is to replace the fossil consumptions by electricity and then renewables consumptions. It's a real substitution of primary energy supply. It's very interesting. In the case of data centers, and it has not been seen since a long time in developed countries, it's a new use adding to all of this. So it's much less in terms of electrification, but we don't talk about the same issue and the same topic. It's there is a lot of uncertainty, but it's a new use, it's a new electrical demand. So it's very important to focus on that.
Thank you. And then I want to point the second question towards you, Olivier. The question is there a risk in some countries such as the UK for fossil fuels to be used to compensate for the lack of grid connectivity capability by the TSOs to connect new data centers? We know that there are some projects with gas turbines connected. So can you develop that, please?
Yeah, in some countries, like in some part of the USA, North Virginia or Texas, and also maybe in UK, some data center operators are keen to develop their own power plants, mainly gas turbine power plant, to be able to develop quite fast new data centers. So behind the meter consumption and behind the meter data center can be quite important in some clusters of data center where there is grid congestions, but also data center operators are trying to develop also new clusters in region where there is less grid congestion, more land available, and less regulatory constraint. So this is the topic regarding like building your own energy, own power plant for your data center is quite impressive, but it's only represent a small share of new data center implementations. So I think it will remain like a marginal share of new implementation of data center.
Thank you, Olivier. I think the data center topic is really interesting and bringing up lots of questions. So an additional one on that about the modeling of regional differences and especially accounting for climate conditions. So there are some countries where, colder climate leads data centers to need less cooling, and actually it could actually mean that waste heat recovery from data centers could be a valuable energy source for other uses. Whereas in warmer countries, the need for cooling would be higher. Is that something that was covered as part of the modeling? I don't know which one of you wants to take it.
Currently, we don't model cooling technologies like we are covering this topic through different power usage effectiveness in each countries and in each data center types. So yeah, climate colder region tends to attract data center, but it's not it's one of the main drivers to attract data center. You have also regulatory constraint, land constraint, grid congestion, electricity prices. So it's just one of the topics which are important for data center operators, and we try to model those non-monetary drivers through what we call the maturity coefficient in our competition between the different countries. So on the one hand, we have like electricity prices, capex, and on the other hand, we have maturity coefficients. So we try to represent all those non-monetary drivers in the different countries to represent the different market shares of new data center which are going to be developed in our model. I don't know if you want to add something.
Just that PUE has decreased during the last decade from 2 to 1.1 through the direct liquid cooling. So it has become a driver a bit less important in these decisions. But yes, that's something that can be done also customized in some scenarios.
So I have a question about investment in data center and what are the key drivers that lead the decision to invest. What do you see as the main drivers? Is it the availability of green energy, energy price, regardless of its origin or type of technologies that provides it? Is it sovereignty of the data? On what assumptions did you base these scenarios?
I will not say that I'm an expert for that question, but I think that we can see we have tools of market intelligence. So every week we see what happened in the world in the data centers, the new project, the new announcements, those that has been abandoned, and we can see investment flows in different regions. There are different summits in France, in the US, in UK, also in Arabia Saudi. So let's say that it's a combination of many factors and many drivers. Perhaps the economical and strategical is quite important right now. Let's say in terms of data and digital sovereignty and economical strategies. But that's open discussion. I will be pleased to discuss that with the participants.
Yeah, I just add that it will mainly depend on the player who want to who develop a data center. If you are like a government and who have like your own data center in your own territory to have like a whole control of your data, so it will be one of the main factor. But if you are like a big tech or like Amazon or GAFAM, you will be much keen on if you have like a skilled workforce in the territory. If you have connection to a grid connection will be easily land availability, also like green energy available, and also like taxation that also can be like elements for your final investment decision. So it will make the different share of all those levers will depend on what type of actor you are and what is your final goal regarding like the implementation of a new data center. Is it for your own uses or for collocation or for like AI development or other topics?
Yes, I just forgot to mention what data center stakeholders said in different tech show in Europe. It's the most attractive countries for them is where the lead time are reducing or not increasing that much because in the previous years it has increased. So yeah, this expression of lead time in the project it's very important for them.
Thank you. I think we have time for a final question before we wrap things up. It's a very basic one. Can one of you guide us through, or at least summarize for us, what drives the big change in energy consumption outlook for Enerbase versus the other scenarios? Can you just summarize in a couple of sentences the main drivers?
For data centers. Okay. I thought it was for the global scenario. For data centers, the main drivers, there are four main drivers. The IT demand that is reflected by the workload. So how the different uses, the generative AI, the other AI uses, how they will evolve. So it's very important to show this is the most important driver. Then the efficiencies, and there is the physical efficiencies, the PUE, how efficient is to extract the heat from the data centers. And the most important, the IT efficiencies, how the algorithm will make improvement in the future to reduce the energy consumed by workload. And then the fourth pillar is the electricity carbon intensity. So all of that depend on the other sector demand. So it's a balance between the project of renewables and nuclear balanced with the electrical demand. So these four pillars give you the entire equations.
Thank you. And then essentially in Enerbase, you have a higher demand for workload and slightly lower efficiencies, which lead to the higher consumption. Thank you for these questions. Sorry for the questions that we weren't able to answer today, but we have to wrap things up. We will follow up in writing for the remaining questions. So I want to thank the three of you for the presentation. I want to thank all of the participants for having been there with us today. If you have any questions about our work, our studies, or EnerFuture product, don't hesitate to get in touch. It will be our pleasure to answer any of your questions. Have a good day to everyone. As a reminder, you will receive the presentation and the replay tomorrow. And I think we wish you all a great end of the day. Thank you for being there.